Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. Breaking news at the top of this bulletin. Brics to be charged with 10% tariff by the United States of America after the just concluded Brics summit. This is breaking news coming in. America clearly feeling threatened by the Brics forum, calling against de-dollarization of the US economy because Brics, some countries had floated the idea of using local currencies, country currencies, or maybe even looking at a Brics currency, which absolutely has threatened Donald Trump as the country reels under an economic slowdown. Now, breaking news coming in. Donald Trump in his press conference that is underway as we speak has said that Brics countries will be charged with an additional 10% tariff. This is the tariff war being taken to not just countries, but to blocs. Listen into what he had to say.
Threat to members of the Brics countries for if they aligned with anti-American policies.
10% charge.
That would be India, Brazil.
That's right. They have to pay 10% if they're in Brics. Because Brics was set up to hurt us. Brics was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in Brics is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir, or is that
pretty
if
soon.
they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of Brics, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. I thought Brics was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. Brics is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard.
That's just coming in. Donald Trump has announced an additional 10% tariff for all Brics nations. He also said that Brics had broken up and that countries were leaving. In fact, that's not correct. What is correct is that Brics has added to the 5-country member. Today, it is a 10-country member bloc, an expanded Brics, no longer just Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. You have Iran, you also have the United Arab Emirates, a very key ally and partner of the United States of America. So how are countries really going to react to a 10% additional tariff by the United States of America? How does that work out in this entire plan with India, where India is already in conversation with the United States of America for a limited trade deal? That's more important, and we'll be tracking those stories very, very closely because the news that's also coming in is that India and the US have already now come up with a limited trade deal. Will there be an additional 10% besides what is decided between the two countries? Important, fine print. We'll get you all the details. You'll find it first here on India Today. Now, finally,
The US administration has officially sent out the first set of tariff letters to 14 countries, informing them of the new tariffs levied. US President Donald Trump, however, signed an executive action to extend the date of reciprocal tariffs, with the exception of China, to August 1st. The letters were sent ahead of the 90-day pause that's going to end on July 9th. The US president said they're open to negotiations with countries if a better deal is offered.
We're always subject to negotiate something that's fair, but we've talked to most of the countries, and pretty much they've had their way for many, many decades, as you know. And it was time that we just wanted fairness. This is not really equitable from our standpoint because it's just a small token by comparison to the damage that's been done over the years. But we had no other president that was willing to do that.
But he said that he was not definitive if the August 1st deadline is firm.
I would say firm, but not 100% firm. If they call up and they say, would like to do something a different way, we're going to be open to that. But essentially, that's the way it is right now, yeah.
Japan and South Korea were the first recipients of the letter and would face 25% tariffs from August 1st. Other countries included Malaysia, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Myanmar and Laos, whose tariff were as high as 40%.
We have also received a proposal from the United States that it would like to proceed swiftly with negotiations in the lead up to the new August 1 deadline, as the content of the letter may be reviewed based on Japan's response. It is deeply regrettable that the US government has announced a further increase in tariffs in addition to the rates already imposed.
As this additional negotiation period, we have secured National Security Advisor Wai Sung Lak is currently traveling to the US to continue high-level talks, and we are approaching the negotiations with the hope and determination to achieve better outcomes as a result of these efforts.
좀 더 나은 결과를 얻을 수 있기를.
Letters have also been sent to Tunisia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is set to reach a 30% tariff, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Serbia, Cambodia and Thailand. Besides negotiations, Trump also gave an option to the leaders of these countries to manufacture goods in the US to avoid tariffs.
There are over 10 countries that President Trump has sent out his letters announcing the tariffs. And part of the message in there was to push us to speed up the negotiations talks before August 1. So the deadline is now moved from July 9th to the 1st of August. If you ask me why it's like this, it's because negotiations do take time. Therefore, he moved the deadline out.
BRICS nations have condemned the revised tariffs imposed by Trump. Earlier, Trump had warned nations of an additional 10% tariff if they supported BRICS' anti-American policies.
So we don't want an emperor. Our countries are sovereign. If Trump issues tariffs, other countries have the right to do the same. There is the reciprocity law. I think it's not responsible for a president from a country like the US to threaten the world with tariffs on social media. Honestly, there are other forums for the president of a country which has the size of the United States to talk to other countries.
According to the US Commerce Department, $465 billion worth of goods were imported last year from these 14 countries. Japan and South Korea, America's 6th and 7th largest trading partners, had accounted for 60% of that. Higher tariffs will bring higher prices for American consumers. America imports goods like cars, auto parts, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals and machinery from South Korea and Japan. Mahashweta Lala for India Today.
The trade war just intensified. Pranay Upadhyay, my colleague, joins me for more. Pranay, not just the letters that were sent, there is one that is prepared for European Union and additional 10% for BRICS nations. How does it work for India that's working out a limited trade deal? That and an additional 10%.
We are yet to get clarity on this, Geeta, because White House has not issued any executive order or any notification regarding the BRICS-specific 10% tax or tariff, what President Donald Trump has indicated. And he has reiterated, his Sunday statement. He's reiterated today as well that he considered BRICS as an anti-American entity working against the American interest, intention to replace the dollar, what he and other US administration people are indicating as a de-dollarization. However, that Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has clarified even in March that there is no intention to replace dollar as the currency of global trade. And, the recent BRICS statement has also indicated, the declaration clearly indicates that this grouping is not against any country or any other grouping, but this is basically to promote their own national interest. And as far as the currency or national, trade in national currencies are concerned, this is basically to promote own economic interest. But right. with President Donald Trump, as we say commonly that with every offer there is a condition applied. So it has to be read with the fine prints that what conditions are applied because sources have indicated in DC clearly saying that there is an if clause that if this group or the countries part of this group are working against the interest of the United States or pursuing the anti-US policy, then only the 10% tariff will be applicable. So we are yet to see that how these 10% tariff clause will be implemented by the White House.
Yeah, but every day there's a new announcement. Now he's said very in a blanket statement that BRICS is anti-America. So like you said, we'll have to wait for the fine print. Stay on with me, Pranay. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Brasilia for his state visit to Brazil. Brazil's Minister of Defense, José Múcio Monteiro Filho, received him at the airport. India-Brazil ties in focus as Prime Minister Modi makes his historic state visit. Prime Minister Modi was in Brazil for the Brics summit and now is in Brasilia for the bilateral meeting between the two countries. He appreciated the artists who performed a traditional Brazilian samba reggae performance to welcome him. He arrived in Brasilia after attending the Brics summit, and now he is on a visit after the invitation by Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The two sides are expected to sign 4 agreements, MOUs, which include cooperation in renewable energy, counterterrorism, agriculture research, between the Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Brazil's Embrapa, and a pact on the exchange and mutual protection of confidential information. Pranay, very important. We will be also talking about Prime Minister's next stop. But what is and how significant is this visit to Brazil, which is also, mind you, going to host the COP summit?
You're right, Geeta. And if you see, you have listed out the details of Prime Minister's reception there, you know, what could be possibly agreed between both countries in the form of MOUs. But see, if you see the indications, if you see how he was received by the defense minister of Brazil. So defense remains an important area of cooperation because India and Brazil have elevated their partnership to strategic partnership in 2006.
Right. Go ahead, Pranay.
Yeah, and if you see the investment, the mining sector, the healthcare, agriculture, these are the important areas on which India and Brazil are likely to forge, their cooperation, to extend their cooperation, and many MOUs are likely during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, which is a very significant visit. You know, after 56 years. Any Prime Minister of India is visiting Brazil for a bilateral visit. So this becomes a very important component. And, it's like South Asia, trying to forge a greater ties with Latin America, the leading economy of Latin America.
Absolutely. Pranay Upadhyay, thank you so much for joining us. Now, his next and final stop, Prime Minister Modi's visit to Namibia on July 9th isn't just historic, it's strategic. From marine diamonds to critical minerals, Namibia holds the resources powering the 21st century. India wants direct access, cutting out middlemen and securing supplies for everything from clean energy to smartphones. It's a quiet but powerful move on the global chessboard. The question is, can India turn resource diplomacy into long-term advantage? My colleague Rudrashish Kanjilal with more.
It's a visit that's both historic and strategic. On July 9th, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will touch down in Windhoek, marking the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Namibia in nearly 3 decades. It's the final leg of a 5-nation African tour, but this stop might be the most crucial yet. Because this isn't just about flags, handshakes, or speeches. It's about energy, minerals, and the raw materials powering the 21st century. To understand the moment, you have to understand the map and the minds beneath it. Namibia is not just another stop on a diplomatic tour. It is one of the richest sources of marine diamonds, critical minerals, and uranium in the world. And all 3 are vital to India's economic ambitions and energy future. So what's on the agenda? Let's start with the most glittering one, diamonds. Namibia's coastlines hold treasure. Namibia's coastlines holds treasure, but not the kind found in stories. The country is home to the richest marine diamond deposits on the planet, with reserves estimated at over 80 million carats. But here's the catch. These diamonds don't travel directly to India. Instead, they go through shipping, trading hubs like London and Antwerp, adding cost, complexity, and middlemen. Modi's visit aims to change that. India wants a direct diamond trade corridor, cutting out the middle, and bringing Namibian rough stones straight to Indian cutters and polishers, especially in Surat, the diamond capital of the world. The goal? Value addition at both ends. India already has a head start. Indian companies have invested over $800 million in Namibia's mining sector, and several firms are operating diamond processing facilities in the country. The visit could unlock the next phase, a move balanced and integrated diamond economy between Windhoek and New Delhi. But beneath the diamonds lies something even more critical: lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements. These aren't just minerals, they are the building blocks of the green economy. Electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines, smartphones, satellites. They all run on critical minerals, and Namibia has them. In an era of supply chain disruptions and resource nationalism, access to critical minerals is becoming the new currency of global power. And India doesn't want to depend solely on traditional sources like China, Congo, or South America. That's why Namibia is suddenly a high priority partner. Tougher, together, diamonds, critical minerals, and uranium form a strategic triangle, each corner reinforcing the other. So what does all of this mean? It means that India is not just reaching out to the world, it's shaping it. By deepening ties with resource-rich, strategically located countries like Namibia, India is building its own global ecosystem of partners and producers. And in a world defined by competition over chips, batteries, and clean power, these partnerships will define the winners. This visit may not grab headlines like summits with Washington or Beijing, but make no mistake, Modi's trip to Namibia is about securing the future, India's future. A future powered by diamonds, fueled by uranium, and wired with rare earth pulled from African soil. And in the equation, Namibia isn't just a side note, it's a strategic centerpiece. Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Benjamin Netanyahu for dinner at the White House on Monday as he pressed the Israeli Prime Minister to end the devastating Gaza war. The meeting in Washington came as Israel and Hamas held a second day of indirect talks in Qatar on an elusive ceasefire. Meanwhile, Netanyahu nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, the U.S. president's long-held goal, presenting him with a letter he sent to the prize committee.
As a deepening humanitarian crisis looms over Gaza and Israeli airstrikes continue, leaving dozens dead and many injured, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived at the White House with an unexpected gesture for U.S. President Donald Trump. Netanyahu presented President Trump with a formal letter nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Israel's nomination comes weeks after Pakistan formally recommended Trump's name for the honor.
I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, wait a minute, ladies.
The leaders met as the indirect talks between Israel and Hamas, centered on a US-backed proposal for a 60-day ceasefire, show signs of progress in Qatar. While Netanyahu publicly denied any ceasefire agreement with Hamas, President Trump offered a different take.
In the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, what's currently the holdup?
I don't think there is a holdup. I don't think there's a holdup. I think things are going along very well. They just, left each other, and it was not a pleasant period of a few days. It was a little longer than a few days, but this was not a pleasant period of time.
This is not the first time that a ceasefire negotiation between Israel and Hamas have occurred. In January, both sides agreed to a temporary truce, but it collapsed in March after Israel accused Hamas of rejecting a US-proposed deal. While the two leaders met, questions were posed regarding the relocation of the Palestinians.
Mr. President, is your Palestinian relocation plan still on the table? Is there a plan? Has there been any progress in finding countries to accept?
Maybe why don't I let you answer that question?
Mr. President,
Wait a minute, wait, he's got to answer the question.
I think President Trump had a brilliant vision. It's called free choice. You know, if people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future. And those who, and I think we're getting close to finding several countries, and I think this will give, again, the freedom to choose. Palestinians should have it, and I hope that we can secure it close by.
Trump previously sparked outrage when he floated the idea of relocating Palestinians and transforming Gaza into a Riviera of the Middle East.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site, and get rid of the destroyed buildings. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad, this could be so magnificent.
Meanwhile, Israelis expressed their disappointment after the meeting ended without any announcement regarding the ceasefire.
I'm very much disappointed. We're all very much hoping for the end of the war and the return of the hostages. I mean, it feels like this meeting was just a PR publicity event for Trump to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
With negotiations still underway and Trump hinting at a breakthrough, all eyes are now on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and whether he will shift his stance on the ceasefire. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me from the United States of America, from Orlando, is Joe Trzman, editor, Long War Journal. Joe, thank you so much for joining me here. Now, we're seeing a Netanyahu-Trump meeting on the one hand and Gaza being bombarded on the other. Is this going to be the stated policy where you're having talks on the one hand and yet the ceasefire doesn't hold? Is there going to be a ceasefire or no ceasefire in sight?
Right. Thank you for having me on. I think right now, the current environment in Gaza, yes, the IDF is continuing to attack Hamas targets and those belonging to other Palestinian terrorist organizations. However, I will say that I think the current IDF strategy in the Gaza Strip has likely reached its limit. So meaning that what the IDF has done, whether eliminating commanders, eliminating terrorist infrastructure, I think this strategy, all right, has achieved this goal. However, there are still hostages in Gaza, and the IDF has only been able to retrieve a handful of them over the last month. So yes, the IDF is continuing to operate in the Gaza Strip. However, with the Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting President Trump, all the indications show that Israel and the United States are ready to wrap this war up. Now they just have to figure out the details.
Well, but there is a difference in how DC is looking at the goals and the situation on the ground, if I go with what you're saying, Joe, and how Tel Aviv is looking at it.
Right. So I would say that I think the IDF has partially achieved its goals. However, I think that the biggest two goals, right, of course, retrieving the hostages, getting the hostages back. And of course, the other one is dismantling Hamas's infrastructure. Israel does not want to see Hamas govern the Gaza Strip after this war is over. Now, the problem is that I don't think those two chief goals, those two primary goals, are compatible, meaning that you can't, if Israel wants all the hostages, they are likely going to be compelled or forced to allow Hamas to continue governing the Gaza Strip. And I think the decision makers in DC, especially President Trump, understands this, all right, and sees that Hamas is likely to continue governing the Gaza Strip, and that the IDF has reached at least most of its goals, has achieved most of the goals that it set out for itself at the beginning of the war. So I think President Trump sees this. I think that's one of the reasons why Prime Minister Netanyahu is in DC right now, to get this ceasefire together. So I think they're on this, both sides are on the same page here, which is good news. Now, again, it boils down to the details. And of course, if Hamas accepts a ceasefire deal.
Right. Joe Trzman, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Now, a vacation turned into a devastating tragedy for a family of 4 from Hyderabad who died in a horrific car accident in the United States of America after a mini truck, allegedly speeding in the wrong lane, crashed into their vehicle, causing it to catch fire. The deceased were identified as Venkat Bejugam, his wife Tejaswini Choleti, and their 2 children, Siddharth and Mrida Bejugam. Originally from the Suchitra area in Secunderabad, the family was residing in Sutton Fields, a community located in Aubrey near Dallas. Their mortal remains will be brought back home to India for the last rites. That's all in this edition of World Today. But before I go, here is what we have for you. Mount Lewatobu Laki in Indonesia's East Nusa Tenggara province was belching volcanic ash clouds 18 kilometers into the sky after an explosive eruption. The explosion comes nearly 1 month after the volcano erupted and spewed towering ash clouds 11 kilometers high, leading to flight cancellations in and out of the nearby island of Bali. With that, it's a goodbye.
Hey, kabur sudah.